the unboxing of Rock and Roll Star, which is the 50th anniversary edition of the Ziggy Stardust album. So we have a photo by Brian Ward that was used during the Ziggy Stardust sessions, lyrics from the song Star, in this silver slipcase, and then inside we have the sheet with details about each of the tracks, as well as an overview of what's included in the box set. There's 5 CDs and a Blu-ray. Here is the main book with yet more Brian Ward photography, and the discs themselves have even more Brian Ward photography on them on the front and back. And just like the Hunky Dory set, each disc is the RCA style disc with Bowie's name in the RCA font, and each disc is a different color. So discs 1 and 2 are here at the front of the box set. Here is an ad for a reprint of the Moon Age Daydream book. And very similar to the prior 3 sets, we have a very similar book with overview, quotations from Bowie, details on the songs, pictures of tape boxes, acetate discs, contemporary reviews and articles. This contains the original notes from the 5 Years box set from Ken Scott about the recording of Ziggy Stardust, as well as new and updated notes on some of the additional mixes that are included here. Some contemporary interviews with Bowie. Lots of pictures of the Spiders. Well, not lots, but a decent amount. Flyers for gigs, because at this point he was starting to regularly gig again with his new band, the Spiders. Pictures from the Old Grey Whistle Test, the audio version of which is included in the box set. More on that later. There's the Starman performance on top of the Pops. Credits. Here's the back. We have 4 additional discs at the back with additional photography by Brian Ward, 3 more CDs, as well as a Blu-ray. There's the main book with the discs inside, and just like the Hunky Dory box set, we get an additional booklet, which is a composite of some of his notebooks with lyrics, set lists, possible track listings for the album, lots of stuff crossed out, some illustrations and recording details, etc., etc. This one is considerably thinner than the Hunky Dory one, which had 60 pages. This one is only 36. And again, they've been increased by approximately 50% to fit within the box set. So there is the Rock and Roll Star box set. I'm also including in this same video the Ziggy Stardust Dolby Atmos Blu-ray. So here is the front and back. And we just have a simple little paper slipcase with a rather uninspiring booklet, which just has notes by Ken Scott, some outtakes from the cover photo session, and then track details, which have been reproduced countless times elsewhere. So that's the Ziggy Stardust Atmos Blu-ray. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. I'm Brandon Ware. You're watching Angel65, my channel for all things music related, both music reviews and my own individual music posts. And today we are taking a look at the Rock and Roll Star David Bowie box set, as well as the 50th anniversary Atmos Blu-ray of the Ziggy Stardust album. So, this is more or less a continuation of where I left off with the Hunky Dory box set, Divine Symmetry, and I'm going to share many of the same opinions in some ways, though I do prefer this box set overall to the Hunky Dory box set, even though I think Hunky Dory is a better album than Ziggy Stardust personally. Let's start with the original album, and I'm going to name some of my complaints right off the bat, both with the original album and with some missed opportunities in this box set. Okay, as I said in Hunky Dory, I believe that this album, as with the case with at least 3 of the 4 albums Bowie did with Ken Scott, with the exception probably of Aladdin Sane, which actually sounds really good. Pinups, Hunky Dory, and Rock and Roll Star. To me, Ziggy Stardust, all sound like shit. I just think that they are not well recorded. They don't sound good. The guitars sound very thin, both electric and especially the acoustics, and it's especially noticeable on Ziggy Stardust. Ken Scott names that he would often use the sound of Bowie's guitar to keep time and like utilize that more in the mix than the cymbals of the drums, which is certainly true. As a drummer myself and someone who loves cymbals, I certainly would prefer more cymbals, and I would prefer that they be less harsh. But the acoustic guitars in particular are just infuriating on this album because they have absolutely no definition whatsoever. As soon as the rest of the band comes in, the guitar is serving almost no function other than rhythmic. You can hear the attack and nothing else. There is no note there. There is no resonance there. The guitar just sounds like... You hear the strings clicking, and that's about it. Only when it's acoustic guitar isolated, as on the intro of Starman, is there any resonance there whatsoever. And that has always bothered me about this album. I am a big fan of acoustic guitars. And there were records made in the 70s where the acoustic guitars sound unbelievable, so full-bodied, so rich, so live-sounding, and they still can serve a rhythmic purpose and have a strong attack. Gosh, what are some examples? Well, basically anything Pink Floyd did from Adam Heartmother onward. The acoustic guitars sound outstanding. Fleetwood Mac, Rumours, the guitars sound outstanding. Anything Steely Dan did, acoustic guitars outstanding. And there's probably countless other examples that I can think of where the acoustic guitars sound rich and huge and full-bodied. And all 3 of the albums that I mentioned that Ken Scott did with David Bowie, they just have none of those qualities. They just sound harsh and tinny, and I do not like it. I also am not the biggest fan of the Ziggy Stardust album in general. I certainly prefer the albums either side of it, Hunky Dory and especially Aladdin Sane, which is probably my favorite of the Spiders period, if you want to call it that. I definitely prefer Aladdin Sane to Ziggy Stardust. I've never been a big fan of the Ziggy Stardust album. It's not that I dislike it, and it certainly has some classics on it. I mean, Starman and the title track, both really great. Moon Age Daydream is really great, and Moon Age Daydream actually does sound pretty cool. I do like the effects on the guitar, the reverb and stuff, playing with that during the solo at the end. All great stuff. Like those songs a lot. I still wouldn't name any of them as one of my favorite Bowie songs, because again, for the same reason that I mentioned in the Hunky Dory review, I know the Spiders are a revered band, and that this is one of the most significantly remembered portions of David Bowie's career, but the truth is, I just do not think that they were that accomplished as musicians compared to the people he would later play with. I mean, when you compare Trevor Bolder to bassists the likes of George Murray and Gail Ann Dorsey, oh my God, it's just, he pales in comparison, and so does Woody Woodmansey compared to drummers like Ainsley Dunbar and Tony Newman. I mean, those guys just, and even Sterling Campbell in the late 90s, those guys just, yeah, they put him to shame. They really do. I'm sorry to people who are a fan of that early 70s glam rock period and revere Bowie for it, and that's their favorite memory of Bowie, that's their favorite persona that he donned. For me, it's just not. I prefer the Thin White Duke period that followed this much more. Those 3 albums, Young Americans, Diamond Dogs, and especially Station to Station. I absolutely love Station to Station. That's top 3 for me, no doubt about it. These albums just are not nearly as interesting to me. Sorry, it's true. I said it. Let's move on. The original Ziggy Stardust album, because of how bad I think it sounds, I'm going to dock 2 stars, 3 out of 5. Mostly for the sound. again, also not that interested in the recordings anyway. This box set. Let's start with some of the frustrations, because I do think that of the 3 big box sets in this series, this has the most to offer and conversely has the most missed opportunities. Number 1 is this. The Atmos mix is actually really cool. It's not as thick and atmospheric sounding as other albums that were just better recorded, to be completely truthful, but it still sounds really cool. Ken Scott said his goal was to make it as close to a live experience as possible, and I suppose it sounds like that. This should have been included in the box set. The fact that it is a separate release is very frustrating. I'm not saying it shouldn't have been released separately, but it also should have been included in the box set, because the box set does include the 2003 5.1 mix, which was folded into a stereo, and that stereo was included on the 5 Years box set in addition to the original mix remastered. And it sounds better than the original mix, but it still doesn't sound great. The kick drum in particular drives me nuts. It sounds like a pop. Just no resonance there whatsoever. And when, again, I'm not saying this is the vibe they were going for, but when you consider what other people were doing in the 70s with their amazing kick drum sounds, it's just frustrating that this album does not do that, because it's definitely a rock album, and it doesn't sound as good as a rock album should, in my honest opinion. But this definitely should have been included in there. And this also includes a new stereo remix, a 2024 stereo remix, which I figure is basically a fold down of the Atmos mix. That I enjoyed. That sounds very fat and very full. Still don't like the kick drum sound. Still don't like the acoustic guitar sounds, but at least they're EQ'd a little less bright, and it's just a more full sound. It also includes the original mix in super high resolution. The Blu-ray on the Rock and Roll Star includes it in 96 kilohertz. This has it in 192 kilohertz. Definitely sounds big. Very big soundstage. Much better than the CD version, that's for sure. But it still doesn't make it sound like it's well recorded. I just don't think it is. Okay, so that's missed opportunity number 1. Atmos mix and new stereo mix should have been included as part of the Rock and Roll Star box set. Second missed opportunity. The BBC sessions, as with the previous sets, are probably the biggest buying point for me, and there are 6 BBC sessions, as well as Top of the Pops, the Starman version, just the audio, and just the audio from the Old Grey Whistle Test performance. All 4 of those videos were included on the Best of Bowie DVD, which is really awesome. You should seek that out. Why were the visuals not remastered in HD and included on this Blu-ray? And I say remastered, not rescanned, because obviously they were all shot on tape. They're never going to look HD quality for real because they just weren't shot that way. But they still could have rejiggered it and just made it sharper and transferred that to the Blu-ray. And it would have looked a lot better than what's on that DVD, which is 25 years ago, so not a very high quality master that's on those DVDs. They could have synced that up with the remastered audio and included it. So the fact that that's not there is just appalling to me. As well as some of the other promos that were on Best of Bowie. They could have included the promos for not Life on Mars. What's the one I'm thinking of? John, I'm Only Dancing. And let's talk about that. That's another song that this includes the original version, because the sax version wasn't done until the Aladdin Sane period. I don't like that song in its original form. I much prefer the sax version. I think it sounds much better. I don't think his vocal performance on the original version is nearly as good either. I know I'm being very critical here, but I have to, because if I'm going to be honest about whether you should buy these or not, I'm going to say what I really think, not just about the album, but about what's included on these sets. Okay. Visuals should have been included, the promo films and the BBC taped performances, and it should have included the new Atmos mix within the box set. Alright, those are the 2 biggest downsides of this box set. Let's talk about what is good. So you get the remastered album, the 2003 5.1 mix, which sounded pretty good. You get an alternate track list with some slight alterations called Waiting in the Sky. You get the 2 single tracks, Starman, the single mix, which I prefer to the original album mix, but still don't like the acoustic guitar sounds on it. And John, I'm Only Dancing. And then all of the material that's on the 5th CD, which is outtakes and alternative versions, is included as well. So CD5, outtakes, alternative versions. Includes an alternate version of Looking for a Friend, the Arnold Corns version, the original version, unreleased, of which is included on CD1. And then from there on out, it's mostly alternate takes and stuff that didn't make the album. Hang On to Yourself, Star, Lady Stardust, Shadow Man, tried re-recording it again. The Superman, Holly Holly, Round and Round, Chuck Berry song. It's Gonna Rain Again, Looking for a Friend, Velvet Goldmine. I do like that song. I find Velvet Goldmine very funny. I enjoy that song a lot. Sweethead, Starman, John, I'm Only Dancing, alternate take, I Can't Explain. So an earlier version of his cover of The Who, I Can't Explain, not the version that would end up on Pinups 2 years later. And then Moon Age Daydream 2003 instrumental mix, which is really cool. I do like that because you can hear the orchestra and the cool reverby effects on the guitar a lot clearer in that mix. Interesting disc, not the buying point for me. The buying point is CDs 2 and 3, which is all the BBC sessions. So there's a total of 6, 7 if you count Starman, BBC sessions here. We get Sounds of the 70s, John Peel from 11th January. Sounds of the 70s, Bob Harris from 18th January. The aforementioned Old Grey Whistle Test audio from 7th February. 72. Sounds of the 70s, John Peel again, 16th May. Johnny Walker Lunchtime Show, 22nd May. And Sounds of the 70s, Bob Harris, 23rd May, and then the third disc closes with that Starman audio from Top of the Pops. Disc 1 includes, again, demos, including another San Francisco hotel recording from the same one that produced Waiting for the Man on the previous box set. So Long 60s, which is an embryonic version of Moon Age Daydream. Hang On to Yourself, Lady Stardust, Ziggy Stardust, Star, Soul Love, Starman demo, and a second version of the Starman demo. You get the Arnold Corns single, so the original single versions of Moon Age Daydream and Hang On to Yourself, as well as the unreleased Looking for a Friend mix that was done at the time, and then Haddon Hall rehearsals, including Star, Sweethead, Ziggy Stardust, Holy Holy, Soul Love. And then disc 4, I know I'm going out of order here. I just went logically with where my train of thought went. Includes Round and Round, so that Chuck Berry recording, which was, again, a B-side of I don't remember what single. The Superman, Ziggy Session outtake, Holy Holy, so this is the Spiders version. And Velvet Goldmine, the original mix. Again, love Velvet Goldmine, as well as the 2 single tracks. And then a little bit of live at the Music Hall Boston. Only 5 tracks survived from that recording. And this would have been the same U.S. tour as the Santa Monica Civic Show, which is included on the 5 years box set and was released before then, which that's really interesting. And here's what I'll say. Even though I still don't like the Spiders period as much as what was to come, I think they were much better live than they were on record. That Santa Monica Civic Show and the Ziggy Stardust movie soundtrack, they are cooking on those performances, and they sound great. I don't think that they sound that great in the studio. I think they sound weak by comparison. And I've always had issues comparing some of the versions on the original album to their live versions. I mean, particularly Hang On to Yourself. That song has always bothered me. It just sounds so weak and lifeless compared to the live version, even though... And what's interesting is, this is kind of contradictory, is that version sounds weak and lifeless, but they do speed up significantly during the chorus. I mean, they probably go 10 BPM faster within 2 bars. They just really, really cook it up during that chorus, which I'm sure was entirely intentional. But for some reason, hearing it on the studio version like that, with the vocals, the way they're done, kind of in a lower register, not nearly as aggressive as he did it live, it just sounds wrong. It sounds like a mistake. It sounds like Woody Woodmansey doesn't know how to keep time, is what it sounds like, even though I'm sure they sped up on purpose to increase the energy. Yeah, a lot of missed opportunities here. I mean, they could have even included the Ziggy Stardust movie in here. I know that wasn't done till the Aladdin Sane tour and would have songs that wouldn't appear on Ziggy Stardust as part of that performance, but there's just so many ways they could have made this box set better. So while at its best it's more interesting than the Divine Symmetry box set, I really enjoyed having all of those BBC sessions across 2 CDs. Ultimately, I think it's an even worse box set, and I think Ziggy Stardust is a worse album. So because of that, because of the missed opportunities, and because the album itself is not one that appeals to me as much as perhaps it does to others, I'm going to knock this all the way down to 2 stars, and I don't recommend it. I would not buy this again. I was happy with the Blu-ray, I was happy with the BBC sessions, and there's just so many other ways that this could have been done that would have been better value for money, is my honest opinion. And as for the notebooks that are included, I mean, that's cool, it's interesting, but given that they're a composite of different notebooks just jumbled together, they're not actually like an exact replica of a notebook that David Bowie had, and the pages are increased. It's just an odd inclusion. They could have just included those notebook pages within the big book itself. I don't think it needed to be its own separate booklet, because as I said in the unboxing, I honestly can't read most of his handwriting anyway. It's more there just for like historical memorabilia purposes, and a lot of cases I can take it or leave it with those things. There's only a few box sets I've ever bought where there's like posters or stickers or extra booklets included that I'm actually like, wow, that's actually really interesting. I'm glad I have that in physical form, as opposed to just like scanning it and including it in the bigger overview book. Yeah, I'm probably going to disappoint a lot of people with this, and I might be getting comments like, why did you buy it if you don't like the album that much? And it's like, well, I hoped buying this would bring me closer to the original album in the same way that Conversation Piece did, because I actually enjoyed that box set a lot. And it made me, it developed my fondness for the first album, because that was an album that I never really cared for or went back to, whereas I actually enjoy it a lot more now. Whereas this box set didn't really make me appreciate Ziggy Stardust in a new way. In fact, after going through this and the Atmos mix, although I enjoyed the Atmos and 5.1 mixes, I'm pretty sick of the songs from this period, to tell you the truth. They just don't have that lasting staying power for me. And one more time, I'll repeat it again, I think Bowie would play with much better musicians later in his career. Much better musicians. Just my honest opinion. Alright, I've probably disappointed enough people for one day. If there's anything that you should get out of this video, check this out. I think just stick with the album itself, the stereo mix here, and the Atmos mix, and the high-res 2012 remaster. Definitely well worth having. Price for this is very fair. Rock and Roll box set, I'll be keeping mine, but I wouldn't recommend it. I would not buy it again. Okay, that's all for now. Thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comment. Bye-bye.